Damajabat from Martzkana Sanapirose. This is the Rorschach, Georgia update from the 12th of June, 2025. Quick summary of what's going down in Georgia. Breaking news just after this was filed, 21-year-old Mate Devize was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison for protesting. Pretext that he was charged with is pretty irrelevant. The goal was clear, the intimidation of the people of Georgia. On Thursday the 5th, Nacho Sanchez Amor, a Spanish member of the European Parliament, said during a session that politicians in the Georgian Dream, or the Kotsebi, are trying hard to avoid personal sanctions. He said EU officials and major NGOs have been getting calls from Georgian politicians worried about their assets, homes in Europe, and kids studying abroad. He thinks sanctions are the only thing that made the Kotsebi react at all. He was also sharply critical of the ruling party's authoritarian methods, saying that cracking down on opposition, targeting civil society through foreign agent laws, and pushing pro-Russian narratives while being occupied by Russia is madness. On the same day, Gheorghe Jamdeliani, Bishop of Marneuli and Hujabi, said during a sermon that a government official tried to poison him. He said the official works in state security and had turned a nun from the bishop's residence into an informant. The nun allegedly spent a year giving him private information, but was told to either poison the bishop's food or apply a toxin to his hand. The bishop said he expelled the nun 2 months ago with the help from locals, beat the official and his bodyguards. He said the issue's not over and the official still sends people to pressure him. The bishop also said he might take the case to the synod and step down if proven wrong. He thinks the government is backing the officials' actions unless they publicly distance themselves soon. On Monday the 9th, Tina Bokuchava, chairwoman of the United National Movement, or Natsebi, said masked men kidnapped her husband, a former party official council member Kote Yoseliani, and forced him to record a public apology video to Uta Ivanishvili, the son of the ruling party founder Bidzina Ivanishvili. The apology was for a comment made 7 years ago about Uta being homosexual. Yoseliani had already apologized for the comment years ago. Bokuchava says 5 masked men attacked Yoseliani near their home, blindfolded him, tied him up, and forced him into a car. She believes they took him to the State Security Service building and pressured him for 8 hours. The kidnappers allegedly threatened the couple's children, naming their school and daycare locations. After Bokuchava's statements, the police summoned Yoseliani to question him about the kidnap. On Thursday the 5th, Robin Dunnigan announced she's stepping down as U.S. ambassador to Georgia and retiring after 23 years in diplomatic service. She says it's a personal decision and not something the U.S. government requested. She plans to leave the country in July. Dunnigan called her time in Georgia the highlight of her career and thanked the embassy team in Tbilisi and Washington. Dunnigan was appointed to Georgia less than 2 years ago. That period was marked by worsening and near total breakdown in relations between the two countries, ending up with the U.S. pausing its strategic partnership with Georgia. Whoever gets the job next, have their work cut out for them. In related news, Georgia has a new ambassador to the United States. It's been almost 6 months since David Zalkalyani, the previous ambassador, resigned shortly after the pro-European protests began. He didn't officially distance himself from the Kotsebi and cited private reasons for stepping down. Tamar Taliashvili is the new ambassador. She's relatively unknown to the public. The most relevant part of her background appears to be her role as Georgia's permanent representative to the Council of Europe. Woohoo! Trump administration has already approved her nomination. On Tuesday the 10th, Zviad Khazarishvili, known as Khareba, the infamous head of the Special Task Department, resigned. Spokesman for the Ministry of Internal Affairs said Khareba stepped down voluntarily. Khareba's department was responsible for brutally suppressing and cracking down on pro-European demonstrators. He's seen as the face of the Kotsebi's brutality, and his unit allegedly used systemic torture against protesters. Misha Kavalashvili, the Kotsebi's president, awarded Khareba and Vakhtang Gomelauri, the Minister of Internal Affairs, who has also recently resigned, an order of merit for, and this is really true, quote, upholding law and order, end quote. Vomit. Still, recall that both of them have been sanctioned by the U.S. and several European countries. Shifting gears, Wednesday the 11th marked the 5th time this year that Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze met with Hungary's President Viktor Orban. As in all their previous meetings, the two talked about deepening economic ties between the countries and Hungary's special role as supporting Georgia's EU candidacy. Hilarious. The role is really special considering Orban seems to be the only leader in Europe the Kotsebi can call an ally at a time when most EU leaders shun them. For those who don't know, the leadership of the European Union all consider Orban Putin's personal emissary within the European Union. Just to illustrate this point, on the same day, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said his government is pushing to end visa-free travel to the EU for Georgians. Speaking in Parliament, he said Poland is rallying support from other EU countries to suspend the policy, pointing to rising crime linked to Georgian immigrants and concerns over Georgia drifting away from European values. Suspending the visa-free deal needs support from at least 15 of the 27 EU member states. International news, Russia's state information agency TASS said the UK is increasing efforts to get rid of Georgia's ruling party. Citing Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the agency wrote that Brits want to encourage activist groups to push them to team up with the opposition. Hilarious. The idea is to shake things up and start a new round of political pressure on the Kotzebue. They also said the West is annoyed that Georgia's drifting away from liberal values and leaning more into nationalism and control. Crazy Russians. According to TASS, London also plans to pour more money into local opposition groups and help them go harder against the government. Speaking of opponents, municipal elections set for October remain one of the biggest topics among opposition parties. Right now, 4 major opposition parties are split on whether to take part or not. Monday the 9th, Bekele Liliashvili, one of the leaders of Gacharia's party for Georgia, or Sakartvelostvist, said his party wants to discuss the idea of a single opposition candidate, someone neutral with no strong party ties. Mamuka Chazaradze's coalition Strong Georgia, or Lelo Dzlieri, also wants to join the race. Chazaradze says he doesn't want Kachikaladze, the current Kotzebue mayor of Tbilisi, to run unopposed and win a third term. His party thinks there's a real chance to win the mayoral race if there is a unified candidate. On the other hand, Natsebi and the Coalition for Change, or Tavisuplevistvist, are boycotting the elections. In economic news, on Tuesday the 10th, Fitch Solutions, a research arm of credit rating agency Fitch, released a report linking Georgia's economic risk to politics, not markets. The report says that the Georgian government's growing closeness with Russia under the ruling party puts the country at risk of EU sanctions, which could slow the increase in the money supply. It points to rising tension between the government and mostly pro-European public, along with a drop in EU investment. However, the report also says that the West might avoid pushing sanctions too hard so as not to drive Georgia further towards Russia or China. Wrapping up this episode with sports, kind of. On Tuesday the 10th, Merab Dvalishvili defended his UFC Super Bantamweight Championship title against Sean O'Malley. Just as his victory was announced, Dvalishvili jumped out of the octagon and shared a brief conversation with President Trump, who was sitting in the front row. Just a day after his win, he arrived in Georgia. Fans and journalists welcomed him at the airport. He shared that during his moment with Trump, he mentioned Georgia, as well as showed his respect and admiration for the U.S. president. One final note for those listeners in Tbilisi, I will be at the Entree at 86/1 Agma Shanabeli near the intersection of Kote Marginashvili Street at 6 p.m. sharp this coming Monday, the 16th of June. If anybody wants to stop by and say hi. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. We're looking for someone to write the ocean update. About 70% of the world's surface covered in salt water. Send us an email at info@rorschach.com with ocean writer position in the subject line if you'd like to join the Rorschach team. Check out the job description and the link in the show notes. Nachman bis.